Hi, good morning, or whatever time is you're watching. I'm Paul Miller, of course, with
Tim Ball.
Tim Ball, and we're talking again about hard questions for Christians. And this video and the next video are going to focus on the Bible and how we get it and what we find in it. We have a question from Austin. What are the Old and New Testaments? So the Old Testament, as Lutherans, and you'll see different church bodies sometimes have different numbers of books of the Bible, and what that goes down to is there are some books of the Bible that they confess as scripture, and others that another group of Christians might say, oh, we don't really say that's scripture. And those, most of those books are found in what's called the Apocrypha, which most of the events in the Apocrypha are between the Old and New Testament. The Old Testament, there's 39 books, and those were collected and compiled by the Jewish people over the years, and of course it spans a really long time. You have all the way back to creation, and then the first time you can really start to really date some events, are probably around 2000 BC, going all the way to 400 BC or so with some of the last prophets. And then we have the New Testament, of course, talking about the story of Jesus, and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John tell the story of Jesus. Acts tells about the apostles after that. And then there's the rest of the New Testament is mostly letters written by those apostles, people who were within 1 degree or so of Jesus. 1 degree, like they were either a disciple of Jesus or worked with Jesus, or the Apostle Paul, who was brought in pretty quickly after. And there's 27 books of the New Testament.
Now, the Jewish believers in the Bible, their Old Testament they call the Tanakh. The Tanakh stands for the first 5 books, the Law, and then the books of the prophets, and then the books of the writings. So it's in 3 different sections, and that's how they put together their Bible. What we call the Old Testament, they call the Tanakh. And I don't know Hebrew well enough to start spouting here, but that's what they call the Old Testament, the Tanakh. Obviously, most people talk about the Torah, which is exceptionally important to people that believe in Judaism, or the believers in most of what we call Jews. But that's what they call the Old Testament, the Tanakh. And it's I can bring one by the school if you ever wanted to see a Tanakh. I studied the Old Testament through the Tanakh. I wanted to make sure that what we have in our Bibles, I wanted to make sure that what we have, even though it's in this kind of a different order than Jewish believers, than Jews, it still is exact same books. It's very, I mean, it's identical. So it's not something where you say the Jews wrote Genesis differently than we did. They might have written it in Hebrew, but it was interpreted in English. It came across exactly the way that the majority of our translations interpreted it. So it's one and the same. The New Testament, what's fascinating about that is the Old Testament, when you study it, when you read the Old Testament, the Tanakh, as I did, you kind of think, what's the goal here? What's going on? It just seems to go on and on and on. The festivals and the holy days and holy things that the Jews believe in. What's the purpose? Well, when you study Jesus and when you study the New Testament, you find out that without the Old Testament, Jesus would just be a guy walking around. He fulfilled and he demonstrated that the Old Testament, what we call the Old Testament, had a purpose. And that purpose was to create his body, for one thing. He has family members that go back thousands of years. Mother, father, grandfather, grandmother, grandfather, grandmother. I go back and back and back. And some of them are kind of shifty people, or people that we wouldn't think are super great or high moral people. They were we won't talk about that right now, but they were people of some ill repute, actually. But they became believers in the God of Israel, and then for whatever reason God had to do it, they became grandmothers and grandfathers of Jesus Christ. And the Old Testament literally points us to Jesus, and Jesus made that absolutely clear when he was talking to other religious leaders of the day. And that's how the disciples and apostles who wrote the New Testament figured it out.
Yeah, and exactly right. And most of those books of the Bible that we have are named after, or some of them are named after the people who wrote them. The next question we have is from Owen. Why are the books of the Bible certain names? Um, and most, a lot of them have to do with either the main character or what they're doing. Genesis, you have, it's the start, um, the start thing. Exodus, when they leave when they leave Egypt, of course. Um, Numbers is when they take the census of all the people, so they're counting everyone. Leviticus and Deuteronomy. Uh, Leviticus is from the Levites. They're the main people who took care of the tabernacle and worship in those days. Deuteronomy. What's the origin of that one? I forget.
Deuteronomy?
Yeah,
It's after the law.
after the law.
It's after the law, and that's the basically the history of how the Israelites were applying. They had lives. Deuteronomy shows you all sorts of interactions in life, just the Jews, the Israelites living their lives and applying the laws of Moses. The first 5 books are called the 5 books of Moses. That's why it's called the Torah. And then you see how they develop as a people group and how they came through the formation of Israel, um, with all the laws of the Torah. And that in Deuteronomy it kind of shows you it applied to the people and how they applied it to themselves. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, very good. And Joshua, Judges, and Ruth, those are who it talks about. First Samuel and Second Samuel focused on the story of Samuel and then David. First and Second Kings are about the kings. First and Second Chronicles, they tell the story of First and Second Samuel, First and Second Kings from a little bit different perspective. Then you have Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. And Job. Those books are about them. The Book of Psalms is a book of hymns. Proverbs is advice more focused to young people. So Proverbs, good sayings. Ecclesiastes. What's the word? The origin of that word is. I'm blanking on it. But it's advice for older people. And the Song of Solomon's another song. Then you have all the prophets. Those books are, you know, like the book of Daniel is about stuff that Daniel saw, and Daniel, and so each prophet, has kind of their own book that they're named after. The Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, those are the writers of those Gospels. And Acts is written by Luke, and then you have from Romans to James or to Hebrews. Those were letters written by Paul and others. Who the title of the book is who they're writing the book to. First and Second Peter and First, Second, Third John and Jude. Those were written by those guys. And then Revelation is the Revelation of John. So that's where we get most of the Bible names for the books from. And of course, I didn't answer everything perfectly there, so feel free to dive in and research a little bit more. Let's see. Do you have anything to add, Tim?
Yeah, the coolest thing about the prophets, you get to see them. You see them well, kind of interacting with each other in the First and Second Kings and First and Second Samuel, flipped order. Is you see the prophets were people that were communicating directly with God, like a telephone. They got together when Elijah was going to be taken up. Elijah was going to be just taken up to heaven without dying. He had a co-worker with him named Elisha, and Elisha was kind of bummed out because it was happening. And there's a scene in the Old Testament where Elisha comes to the other prophets and says, "Yeah, my master's going to be taken up." And they said, "Yeah, I know, we heard." So it's like, well, wait a minute, how did they hear? How did they hear? Because God was communicating directly to the prophets, and they all knew what was going on. They all had the exact same word. Because, as you see, if a prophet doesn't tell you the truth, then he's not communicating exactly with God. And it's kind of a fascinating thing. That prophet is not, you could get in serious trouble to say you're a prophet and then say, the door's going to open up in about 5 minutes, Paul, and in 5 minutes and 1 second it doesn't open. I'm in serious trouble, especially if I say in the name of the Lord. Just a word of the wise. There's some really fun things to read about in the Old Testament.
Yeah, and you're right. And you made a really good point earlier that we have all the Old Testament pointing to Jesus, And then the New Testament is kind of everything, like everything in the Old Testament comes to Jesus, then everything in the New Testament kind of flows from there. So it kind of makes like an hourglass shape of the focus.
Yeah, Ruth, for instance, that's a great great grandmother of Jesus. So you read the story of Ruth, and it's like, so what? Okay, she falls in love with this guy Boaz, and well, what's the big deal here? And the book ends, and it's like, okay, whatever. But then when you read the genealogy of Jesus, and you see how it's all knitting together, then you're thinking, oh, wait a minute, I mean, the woman the woman in the wall of Jericho, how I mean, great great grandmother of Jesus. It's like, what's going on here? The Old Testament is telling you all these stories of people that have to do with the life of Jesus. They're his family members. And because when I was a non-believer and I was studying the Bible to just make fun of Christians and point out all the dumb things that I thought they believed in, I was thinking, wait a minute, this Old Testament is kind of like making sense. It's doing something. It's creating something. And it seems to be creating a history for somebody in the future. And then when you look back on Ruth, Boaz, and their children, and their child, and what happened through all that, you think, hey, wait a minute, that's Jesus. All of these bizarre things going on in the Old Testament that don't seem to make any sense, they make a lot of sense when you look at Jesus Christ. It's like they were knitting together his body. And during one of these lessons we have, not this time around, but I will teach you about one of the most fascinating celebrations that Israelites, Jews, believers in the Old Testament, the Judaism, they believe in a festival called Sukkot, which is an amazing festival that points absolutely directly to Jesus being God.
Yeah, and we look forward to hearing that, if not next week, in a few weeks. And at the end of John, just going off your point earlier, it says, "These things are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God." And that's what the whole Bible is a testimony about Jesus and what he's done for us. So next week, and maybe the week after, we'll continue some more stuff about where we get the Bible from and can we trust it and so forth.
And one more thing.
Go for it.
John was called Yohanan, pronounced Yohanan, when it was written by the Hebrews. Matthew was called Matisyahu. That was his name. His name was not Matthew. That's an English name. So those things were changed when the Bible became Europeanized. When the Europeans took over the Bible, they put European names to the Jews. Like we read the book of Jude. Well, actually, Jude's name is really Judas. Judas was a very popular name. Like if you see guys that are named Tom, there's lots of Toms in society. There were lots and lots and lots of people called Judas or Judah in the first century Rome, in the Israeli or Jewish world. So, but that for another time. So there's just so much fun in studying the Bible that it is something that no matter how old you get, no matter how young you are, you just study it and going, wow, this is insanely cool.
All right. We'll see you later, guys.